Record. Hello, 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 Sebastian. Welcome to the Parental CEO interviews. How are you doing this today? It's morning here, but it's not where you are, right?
Yeah, we just said that we're literally the opposite side of the world, right? So 12 hours or 13 hours time difference. So it's 6 p.m. here in Dubai, another sunny day.
Amazing. And 7 a.m. here in LA. It's crazy. It's crazy what
Awesome.
technology can do. So,
Great.
welcome to the Parental CEO interviews. The Parental CEO was created to help parents become successful both in business and in parenting. And like adding in all the bits of real life in there as well. So we always want to add value to our community by sharing success stories and advice on how other people are managing best of both worlds. So Sebastian, we would love to know, where did it all start?
Where did it all start, with my business or with my family or?
With everything. So you've got your own business, so explain that a little bit and then explain where the kids came into.
So I'm the founder of the Warrior Academy, which is a global martial arts organization that specializes in developing character in young people. So essentially, we've identified that character development is this massive gray area for parents. If I asked 50 parents in a room, which I've done many times, what character development is, they all give it different answers, right? But character development, we've kind of narrowed down to confidence, conduct, and concentration, what we call the 3 C's. And we use martial arts as a vehicle to develop character long term. Students join us, they go on an 8-year journey, and at the end of it, they get a black belt character, which sets them up for a happy and successful life as an adult. We teach 4,000 children every single week across 3 continents. And so that started 13 years ago now in a small village in Somerset, and grew quite quickly. We're now in the UAE. Alongside the sort of 2,000 paying members, we've got 2,000 kids who are scholarship students. So I've set up a charity alongside this. So for every paying member, we've got a free student in an orphanage or a slum or a homeless shelter in developing countries like Kenya, Nepal, in Sri Lanka, India, and soon in Brazil as well.
That's amazing. Wow. And how many kids do you have?
I've got 2 kids, 2 little monsters, 2 little warriors.
How old are they?
That my youngest is 3, and my oldest daughter is 6, a boy and a girl.
Wow, 3 and 6. I'm feeling your pain with the ages, right?
Yeah, we've just come out of the terrible 2s, and he's just a completely different little guy now, so I'm not being attacked every morning by a pirate, which is good.
That's amazing, bless him. We want to know now, what's next for you? Like, what are you doing next? Because you've grown really quickly, and so many big things are going to come out of this. What are you going to do next?
So we've got lots of conversations going on to basically license what we're doing around the world globally. So it's one of those things, when it comes to a business, for a long time, the moves are kind of 1 + 1 is 2, 2 + 2 is 4, and so on and so on. Then it gets to a stage where you don't just add, you multiply.
Yeah.
And we're now at the kind of the cusp of that. So it's a really interesting time for us, where we're in comms with a few different potential partners to license the Warrior Academy around the whole world within the next 2 years. So it's a real level up in terms of what we're doing from a business perspective. In terms of what we're doing with a charity perspective, that's absolutely incredible. We've just opened up another orphanage here in Kenya, 480 students. We give employment to 15 instructors in developing countries to give them a career path. 2,000 young orphans and homeless street kids, basically, who are with us. And what am I doing this week? I've just arranged for 40 passports to go out to 40 of these kids in homeless shelters and slums to fly to the UAE to do the World Championships here. So we've got an event coming up with 400 people attending.
Wow.
And we've got the embassies involved, and it's the biggest event we've held, especially from an international perspective, with 4 or 5 countries all flying in. So that's what the charity's doing. The Warrior Academy itself is actually run by an amazing team. We've got a leadership team, and then there's 60 people running the whole business. So from my perspective, what I do now is more around the kind of strategy or the storytelling, and the Warrior Academy podcast and all that sort of stuff is where I'm kind of heavily involved to try and get the word out about what we're doing. So that's basically what we're doing with the charity and the Warrior Academy right now.
Amazing. So we'll definitely try and get the word out on this side of the word, and be posting this on YouTube for you. And we'll put any links if everyone's interested in finding out more about the Warrior Academy or more about what Sebastian's doing on the charity work side. Please drop us some messages below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So in that, what do you recommend of, like, obviously being a parent and having a business? What do you think your keys to business success are?
I think it all comes down to teamwork. I think if you're really a really good partner, and the way I see it is this, right? If you've got a football team or a basketball team or whatever, you don't just all want to be the striker or all want to be the goalkeeper, right? So you kind of look at it like, who's best at what, and how can you maximize the strengths of each individual person? And so, for me, I'm super passionate about business and entrepreneurship, and I really want to follow that. But I also want a family, and I want to have a family and grow a family and have all the excitement and the adventure of that. And so I've kind of got these two spheres to my life. And so with my wife, she doesn't care at all about finances or business. She just wants the family side. So from her perspective, she's like, right, give me the space to do the business, support me as much as I can with that. And then when I come home, just try and make it as a peaceful environment as possible. So I've got the headspace to spend time with the family. And, and like I was saying to you before the call, I built the business around that. And so, I do pretty much all of my work from this office. All of my work's on my phone. So when the kids are home, I'm not really normally working. We travel 3 months a year. We spend a month in Thailand and 2 months in the Mediterranean, and we go on ski trips together and all this sort of stuff where it's just about bringing the kids outside into into the world and exploring the world and spending time with them, which for me is really important. But the business side of things, and balancing those two things, it's interesting because I meet so many parents they've got successful businesses, but they've also got this element of guilt with what they're doing. So they are out there basically trying to pursue and trying to create a better life for their children, for their family at home. And then they go home and they feel guilty that they've been away doing that. And what I really believe in is that it's not just about having time with your kids. It's about presence, right? I mean, I remember my dad would go away 6 months of the year when he was in the army. He would go away on tour or exercise, even more, and he'd come home after 6 months. And then he would spend such quality time with us and tell us stories and take us on adventures. And then 6 months later, he'd have to go away again for a month or 2 or 3 months or whatever. But we never look back and think, oh, he was never around. We think, wow, what an amazing dad, the adventures, the stories, we learned so much from him, all this sort of stuff. So it was really quality over quantity. And that's been my approach. And the other way I look at that is, if you're driving a big business forward, you're trying to pursue that, and you're out there and you're trying to change the world in a positive way to improve other people's lives, and you're serving your community, you're serving your family, and you're serving the wider world, ultimately your kids model that. And so while people have guilt with it, the way I see it is, it's actually really inspiring for a young person, a child, to look up to their role models and see they're out there pursuing their passions, that they're out there pursuing their dreams, and they're out there doing something which isn't just staying at home with them, which for a lot of parents, when they are home for a long time with their kids, they're not that present. They're on their phones, they're watching Netflix, all this sort of stuff. So I think it's just being acutely aware of the separation between the two. So pursuing incredible time management, right? If it's in the calendar, it's getting done. But also having this teamwork, which is really important. Which is why we do a lot of work to support single mums and stuff, and single dads, because it's such a challenge, right? Because they haven't got that support network always.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, it's something that's close to our heart, as Jamie and I are traveling around, we get to see it hands-on experience, and we've seen it with so many others. And trying to break that normal from, both parents these days are having to go to work in a normal life. They're both having to go to work to pay the bills. The kids are having to go into childcare. So they kind of go into work to pay for childcare and then feeling ridiculously guilty when they get home, but they're also exhausted. So, and then the kids have got like after school activities. And I spoke to a mum the other day, one of our closer friends, and I was like, when do you get me time? When do you actually get any time to just do you? She's
Yeah.
even doing martial, because I was telling her about you and my background of martial arts. I've tried pretty much everything, and I love it. And it was for me, and she's going because the kids are going, and she likes
Mm.
it. But she's grading with the kids, she's following the kids. But I says, what are you going to do for you? And she says, you know what? I've started coaching and coaching in the martial arts group. She does karate, but she started coaching because, yes, it's for the kids, but it's for her and it's for the other people. It's like external. But she still hasn't got much time in between anything because they're both working, the kids are going out to all the clubs, and she's just finding it very difficult to manage. And I think we're trying to break that
Yeah.
normal to say, when you are doing something that really fires you up, something that's really passionate, you're passionate about, it's no longer work. It becomes your passion. And that
Yeah.
shines out into everything you do and everyone around you. And like you said, you really role model that for the kids. My kids are laughing right now because we're in LA. I'm a huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer geek. So the first thing we wanted to do when we got here,
What a
other
great show. I remember that. That was a classic.
It's textbook. So we got here and the ladies made me a personalised cup with Buffy on. And my son goes, Mum, you're a bit like Buffy, aren't you? I was like, what do you mean? Well, you look a bit like her. Your hair needs to be a bit longer. But, you're always doing something. You're always trying to make everything better. And I was like, oh my goodness, if my son says that about me, I'm hoping
Mm.
that, that he's then starting to take them moments. But yeah, we've been out to see where it was filmed at the school because we're right in the village next to it, and I've been
Oh,
outside
really?
his house. So I've been doing all the stuff that makes me happy, because we
Yeah.
did the last couple of things. Like Tobias really wanted to go to the Eiffel Tower, so we've done that. He wanted to go and see the Endeavour space shuttle at the science center, so we've done that. He wanted to go, and Jamie wanted to go and go over to Turkey and Istanbul. So we've kind of done everything that everybody wants to do, and we're doing it because that's what life's all about. It's about, like you said, with the kids, the experiences. So there's always a way you can find something that will drive them forward, that drives you forward.
Mhm.
And if you're, I measure success on happiness. If you're happy, your kids tend to be happy. And it has such an energy transfer, as science says, it's always transferred, never lost. If you're bubbly and energetic and happy, that transfers to everybody else. But,
Yeah.
you probably see this more than most. Like, you have that negative effect on the kids. The kids are not wanting to get into stuff. They're feeling a bit down. They can't be bothered. And, you only have to do a certain thing like an energizer to get the kids going again. And their energy goes boom. Um,
Mm.
and it's amazing that you can do that, and especially in, the countries and the kids that really don't have that opportunity normally. That's really incredible. Um, it must make you feel amazing as well.
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, there's certain moments with the charity which are just, it's like, oh, it just hits you. I remember visiting one of the first centers we opened up was a homeless shelter for about 30 boys in Nairobi, and a lot of these boys they find in the railway where they end up getting on a train, running away from home, getting on a train. Some of them come from homes, but they get on a train, run away from home for whatever reason. Maybe they're being abused at home. Um, and they jump off the train and then they're lost and they don't know where they came from, and they end up just becoming accidental street kids. They're there for a couple of years and suddenly they're addicted to drugs and alcohol and all, substance abuse and all this sort of stuff. The charity finds them and then takes them to this homeless shelter. And so we're in this homeless shelter, and they're they're in bunk beds, and it's like no one really sleeps because a lot of the kids, you know, they wet themselves at night and all this sort of stuff. They get one good meal a day of rice and beans or porridge. And when we got there, we'd been in comms for a long time with the teacher, and he managed to access YouTube, and so resourceful, just studied our program on YouTube. And when we came, they performed, all 30 boys, this Warrior Academy white belt class. And they were using a ping pong bat with a pillow on the front and all this sort of stuff. And I looked around the room, and they were all there. They were covered in like bruises and scratch and burns and all this sort of stuff. And all of these, all the clothes they were wearing were just, you know, they were torn, they were dirty, there were holes in them, all this sort of stuff. And they've got 6 months. They've got 6 months with this center to transition them to full-time education, right? So the idea is the government allows the center to have them for 6 months before they have to go into full-time education. But the problem is when they do go into full-time education, they've been weaned off the substance abuse, their health is in better order, and they've learned a little bit. Then they go to education and they run away from school because they're running away from authority. They've been beaten by the police or beaten at home, and so they just run away. And so we've got 6 months to work with these kids to basically improve the decisions they make. And ultimately, that's what character development is, right? Character development is fundamentally improving the decisions we make. And if you can improve the character of a young person today, you improve their decisions of tomorrow. And so, you know, what's really cool now is we've just sent them uniforms. So they're now wearing Warrior Academy uniforms, which is their only owned piece of clothing other than the old clothes they're wearing. And we're taking, you know, a handful of them to Dubai, getting them passports, bring them over here, and having them compete in the World Championships against 6 other nationalities. So yeah, that's one of the moments with the charity that was just like, wow, incredible, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's such a important thing as well, because we all as parents have a choice to make, but environment dictates performance. So if you're in those areas where, you know, it's okay, everyone else is doing the drugs, everyone else is, you know, running away, everyone else is, you know, living like that, they don't know anything else. So when you start going, you know what, be part of something, be part of something,
Yeah.
be part of something where
And
you care for.
that's a uniform, right? So this is the powerful thing about giving a child a Warrior Academy martial arts uniform. When they put it on, it's like an identity, and kids have incredible imaginations, right? We know that they've got such powerful imaginations. You know, my little boy wakes up as Spider-Man, the next minute he's Batman, then he's, you know, a pirate. And do you know what I mean? It's just like throughout the day, he's just in this incredible imagination zone. And he's 3, and my daughter's, you know, she's pretty similar when it comes to that sort of stuff. But these boys who have lived pretty rough lives, you know, you give them this chance to kind of relive that you know, imagination. You show them videos of martial artists, then you give them a uniform, they put it on, and it's like this incredible feeling where they're suddenly this martial artist. And so when it comes to making decisions, it's like, well, what does a martial artist do? Well, he does this and he acts this way. And I look at my instructor, and my instructor does this. A black belt does this. And so we call it the black belt journey, because ultimately they go on an 8-year journey with us where they become, you know, that you paint a picture of what they become. And that's often one of the fundamental problems, I think, that we have in society right now, is we focus so much on what we shouldn't be rather than what we should be. If you look at things like, I really feel like young men, and the Warrior Academy started with 15 young men who was sort of 15 to 18 years old in an inner city gym in the southwest of England. Again, not too dissimilar from the slums we're now working in terms of their backgrounds, right? They were going through social abuse, domestic abuse, substance abuse, all this sort of stuff, and they were sleeping rough, getting into fights, and we turned their lives around. But I see young men today, and there's this huge focus on toxic masculinity and all this sort of stuff, and everything seems so negative. You shouldn't be this, you shouldn't be that, and I think what young men need is just a positive masculine role model. Like, this is what you should be working towards. This is what are the positive traits of masculinity. Forget the toxic stuff, focus on the positive stuff, and people grow into that. You know, as human beings, we grow into the things that we speak about, right? Like, you know, if you tell yourself that you're depressed all the time and that you're upset about this and you're not grateful for that, guess what? Guess where you're going to go? You know, if you tell yourself that you're overweight and you've got an eating problem, guess where you're going to go? If you tell yourself that you know, you've got an incredible passion for martial arts, and you've got high confidence, and you've got lots of potential, and you can really work hard to achieve something, and you start setting goals and actually planning, guess where you're going to go. And so, you know, I really think that it's very much about the language we use, right? You know, the way we speak to a child literally paints a picture of what they become.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. And obviously from my background, so I'm a life coach as such. I call it the change coach now because I'm coaching change. And I particularly work with parents, especially mums, because mums have that massive guilt on their shoulders. Am I doing the right thing? Am I spending enough time? Always trying to
Yeah.
do everything for the kids, that they're not actually focusing on themselves. So when they start seeing what they're doing good themselves, and just me sending them reminders like, it's okay, you've got this, you're doing an amazing job. They're like, yeah,
Mm.
I'm doing an amazing job. And then they start doing the amazing job because they're focusing, like you say, on the positive. And we do a lot of manifesting. And the things that we all manifest, you know, will come true if we keep believing it, like just exactly how you're saying. But it has a knock-on
Yeah.
effect. We got to hit them parents first because the parents are
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
teachers. And you know,
If you can manifest the good things, you can manifest the bad things, though.
yes,
This is the reality. And I mean, even physical symptoms. So if you imagine, if you are stressed, that literally causes IBS, and you know, if you, anxiety links to stomach issues and all this sort of stuff. If you're thinking about something negatively, or you're absorbing your mind in that, can literally come out as physical symptoms. And for me, that's mind blowing. In the same way that we can think about something negative and it comes true, the same way we can think about something positive and it comes true. So,
um,
you know, it's not so much a case of you put it out there and the universe is like, cool, got that, yeah, you're going to get that. It's a case of you're just focusing your energy and then your subconscious decisions around that. I think, like, you know, because you're giving something so much thought and attention, you start seeking more opportunities in that direction, and
yeah,
you don't even notice it. You just kind of build this life around something that you're gearing towards. So manifestation is far less woohoo than people think, and more actually practical, right? It's just understanding that if you think about something, you're probably more likely to do it, and you're going to get it done. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, especially if you've got reminders on your phone, or you're doing like you've got a
Yeah,
meeting for this meeting today. I had a stage of
yeah.
things ready to come to it. And it's like, right, I'm going to be there. I'm going to have this amazing meeting with Sebastian. You know, we're going to get all this great information out there, share it with the world. And that's exactly what we're doing. So, but I could
Mm.
easily gone, oh, he's not going to turn up. Oh, I'm not going to get this done today. And I probably wouldn't have. So it's like you say, it's not the woohoo side of it, it's the practical. This is what I want. This is, you know, really what I want. And the whys of why you want it. Because if you want a better life, you've got to you've got to put the work in, you've got to action those things. But
Mm.
if you start falling behind, it's always nice to have a guide, someone like yourself that's got that aspirational character, that thing to look up to and to go, you know, how did they get there? Well, they just kept putting in the effort. You know,
Yeah.
they kept thinking positively,
And
they
do you
kept
know
saying,
what? One of the reasons people do think it's really sort of woohoo, I'm not sure if that's an actual word, but like out there and kind of imaginary, right? Like some sort of magic, is because of this disconnect we've got, especially in the West, between the mind and the body. You know, we just assume that they are two different things. And it's funny that, isn't it? Because they're actually all part of the same kind of existence, and they influence each other so much. You know, and so it's, you know, a good example of that is, if you ever got it's funny because I got bad arthritis, and so if I get a flare of arthritis, my wife's foot starts hurting now. It's like you're so in sync, right?
did you
Now,
not get
of course, that's just ridiculous, right? Like that's not a actual thing. But the reason that happens is because she puts so much focus then on that, and it's like, if you're thinking about your foot hurting so much, guess what? It ends up hurting. It's just funny how that actually happens, right? Where whatever you direct your energy towards, I think it's, you know, you're more likely to notice a niggling feeling there, and so then you have a flare up or something. It's just it's an interesting element of life. I think just the focus of energy into one direction, both positive and negative, ends up growing.
definitely? And this, like me being a scientist by background, I put everything I do, I put it into, proven by science, and I have to prove it myself first before I will even show
Yeah.
somebody else. And, it's amazing how the mind actually controls the brain growth. And if you're thinking about the positives, the more stuff you do, I use this analogy with the kids. So I'm breastfeeding, I'm a breastfeeding support worker. If you're putting oxytocin out, which is the happy hormone, right? You're doing the things that make you happy. They're doing the things that inspire you. They're doing the things that, cuddling the kids and the warmth. It actually grows the brain. It grows the brain cells. It acts like a plant food on a plant and growing a plant. Yeah, if you're stressed and you've got the cortisol release, then that's like snipping the plant down. You're pruning it down. So if you can keep
Mm.
in that positive mind frame and the happy energy and have that safe, loving environment, you're going to grow. If you've got the negative side of stuff, everything's just going to shrink down, and it's really difficult to break through that. So, kind of saying to parents out there, whoever's watching this right now, you get to choose happiness, you get to choose the positive. So, what do you want to choose? Do you want to choose growth,
Yeah.
positivity? Or, do you want to stay in the same place, or even like shrink your brain cells by being overly stressed? And everyone could go, oh, it's easy for you to say. Well, if you know your own backstory or my backstory or anyone else's backstory, they came from something, that everybody who's experienced stress and anxiety as something at some point, but it's up to you to choose how that impacts you. And one thing that we
Yeah.
do with kids is, this is like my final question to you really, is we have our personal values, our business values, and our family values, and they're all the same thing. The Japanese ikigai, if you read much into that side of stuff, people can say that's the woo-woo stuff, but it's the belief mechanism. And our values, the main ones we use with the kids are you being kind, helpful, or respectful? If
Yeah.
they're falling out, if they're fighting, if they're arguing over something, or if they're closing doors on each other, I ask, are you being kind, helpful, or respectful? Sometimes what I would normally shout at, don't do this, blah, 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 you're hurting your brother, or whatever it is, he's actually being, in his mind, kind. So he'll say, no, well, I'm being kind to Jackson because, let's say Toby's being kind to Jackson because of this, this, and this. But I've noticed now Jackson's just turned 4 and he's saying, Mummy, that boy's not kind, helpful, or respectful. So instead of just going, okay, so he's being mean to me. Well, what is he doing? Well, he's doing this, and that's not kind, and this is not
Mm.
helpful. So it's giving the kids a voice to then kind of go, well, these are my values. You've kind of not done them. I either have a choice to step away from that, or I can bat heads with somebody. And if they've got
Mm.
that choice, they say, well, these are my values and I'm going to protect them. This is how I'm going to protect them and keep them my values. But sometimes they have to learn the compromise or teach those values to somebody else. So what are your values within the business and the family? Are they the same?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So I was asked the other day, what with such an ever-changing environment educationally, the adoption of AI, all this sort of stuff, we need to teach kids from a young age how to code and all these little things. It's like, what are the most important things that we can teach kids? And so my response to that is the things that stand the test of time. And so those things are values, they're character traits. It's things that influence the decisions we make. Like I talked about character development, right? So, a really interesting exercise, if you're wondering what your values are, is just picture yourself as an old person. You're 90 years old, you're on your hospital bed, and one of your grandkids comes along and you're about to die, and they say to you, what 3 pieces of advice could you give me? If you could only give me 3 pieces of advice, what would you say? And so I thought long and hard about that, and that's ultimately what kind of defined my values, I guess, as an individual, which then influenced the business and the business's values. Those 3 for me were think big, take risks, and team first. So obviously, think big is having a different perspective, having a big picture for yourself and those around you, and then painting that picture for them. Take risks is not being afraid to jump in the deep end when you're not ready, right? Like imposter syndrome, I see as a natural part of life. And I think you should be revving your car right up until the red. And I think if you get to the point where the engine light comes off, then you probably need to upskill. So it's just getting it right up until that point and then you're in a position where you're in growth mode, right? So take risks is being in that high performance zone and encouraging that. And ultimately, when it comes to kids, that's about empowerment, right? And team first is having that support network. Community is such a value, and it's such an important aspect of everything we do. If you don't have a supportive, safe community for your child, they're not likely to leave their comfort zone and grow in the first place. So community is massively valuable. I think parenting comes down to two key things for me. It's this balance of empowerment and protection. You need to protect your kids. That's your primary role as a parent, right? There's no point in empowering them if they're not safe. So you have to protect them, but you need to empower them so that they are safe when you're not there. And the ultimate goal of a parent is to prepare your kids for a life without you. And it's so difficult for parents to understand that. And I think especially for mums, because they've got that connection from birth, right? Where this living thing they've been growing inside them, they now need to let go. And it's like the world's longest breakup, and so I kind of see it like, especially with mums and boys, I've noticed, but I kind of see it like, the team, the parents' team is for one who kind of drives empowerment and the other kind of drives protection. And for the empowering parent, the one who's trying to push the risk taking, to kind of encourage the other parent to slowly let go. And I see this dynamic happening all the time with parents. I think that's really healthy. I think that's difficult when you're in a situation where you're a single parent. And if you're a single parent, then I would really advise you to try and find that team dynamic and something else out there, like maybe a role model who can help encourage your child to leave their comfort zone while you focus on the protection or vice versa. It suddenly becomes more complex then. But yeah, so my values would be team first, think big, take risks. But ultimately for parents in general, I think it comes down to two things: the balance of empowerment and protection.
Brilliant. Everyone write that down. Sebastian, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Really, really appreciate it. And, the value you're adding and the things that you're doing, it's incredible. Hopefully, if you've got any questions, drop them in below. Now, we could talk all day about this, and I would love, love, love to talk more about the empowerment side with you. But thank you today for being here, for sharing everything. And do you have any questions for me?
No, I'd love to know, but it's going to take me a long time to find out. I think just how you're managing to travel the whole world with your kids and give them all these incredible adventures. So I'd love to do that with my kids. So there's probably another day's conversation on that one. But
Awesome. Let's
I'm
book a
super
date.
impressed with that.
Well, thank you so much. We'll hopefully get out to see you guys at some point. And you can
Yeah,
show.
it'd be
I know you've
fantastic.
already showed Damie around, but it's my turn. The kids as well, like they're always looking to see someone their own age that's kind of lived in a different place and how they've got on with it. So they love making friends. They started learning different languages. It's great. Like you say, you've got to protect them, you've got to empower them. But again, it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about everybody. Do what makes you happy. But thank you so much. And yeah, I'm going to stop
That
the
was great. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem.